for the rules. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes per response. Our timekeeper, Becky, will show the green light at the start and then change it to the yellow light at 1.5 minutes, and then when it turns red, the 2 minutes are up. The box that the candidates will be looking at will be behind you, up above in the near the sound booth. The questions for tonight's debate have been submitted from members of our sponsoring groups, the Northwest Republicans Group, Tucson Tea Party, LD26, Smart Girl Politics, and the Oro Valley Republican Women's Club. Now, these questions were grouped into categories in the following order: immigration and border issues, war and security, economic issues, political strategy, health care, constitutional questions, and then finally cap and trade. And we might ask you how to spell potatoes. But you never know, so just be on your toes, please.
He was checking his
Now, our panel has been asked to rotate through these categories with questions for our candidates. If a panelist feels for any reason a question should be repeated a second time, they can play their card and ask for the same question to be repeated to any other candidate. The moment you're through, however, we'll come back in order again. The candidates are asked to honor this 2-minute rule. Each of them can use their 2 cards for either an additional 2 minutes time or for rebuttal of any question asked of another candidate. In other words, 1 card buys 2 additional minutes to respond or a 2-minute rebuttal of another candidate's question. This is done by raising your card and asking for my permission to proceed. Just be kind. Continuing on, the candidates who do not know any of the questions, they will be asked this evening, and even our panelists did not have knowledge of the questions until just before coming on stage. So the candidates did not know any of the questions. The candidates will each have time for closing remarks at the end of the question period. So again, at this time we ask that you hold your applause until the closing remarks. So if we're ready, let's go ahead and begin and go to the candidate who won the highest hand, of course, Senator Johnathon Paton. Thereafter, the candidate to his left, or the audience's right, will be the next candidate. Roxanne Ziegler will have the next question to ask the candidate, of course, after our first, and that's, we will begin with our first panelist, Bruce Ash. Bruce?
Good evening. Mr. Paton, what is your position on the path to citizenship for those who are here illegally?
Well, it's very simple. My position on path to citizenship is you should not be able to get citizenship if you've entered into this country illegally. I don't believe in amnesty. And I have a record on this issue of cracking down on those who come into this country illegally and also those who bring them in. I met with Sheriff Joe Arpaio yesterday, and he introduced me to his human smuggling team. And they told me a story about a woman not long ago that they found in a drop house. And she had been beaten so badly that she had been pregnant and she miscarried her child by the coyotes in that drop house. They used a new state law called the Human Smuggling Act to prosecute all of those coyotes. I wrote that law. I talked to them, and they also said they've been using another new law that puts in a Class 3 felony for those who commit a violent act when people enter the country illegally or smuggle someone in the country illegally. When the Pima County Board of Supervisors told our sheriff in this county, you can't cooperate with the Border Patrol, I changed that decision completely, and now the Border Patrol is embedded in the department. On all those things, I haven't written sound bites. I've written the laws of this state that are making it better for Arizonans. They put over 1,800 people in jail because of that Human Smuggling Act, and I'm very proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Roxanne?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Goss. What is your position on amnesty for illegal immigrants?
I do not support any sort of amnesty, path to citizenship, or or a guest worker program for those whose first act upon entering our country was to break our laws. It boggles my mind. It makes no sense to give someone who has broken our laws, broken our sovereignty, amnesty. It makes no sense. But the problem is not just with the illegals, it's the political will to enforce these laws. That's what we are lacking right now. We have a Department of Homeland Security Secretary we all are familiar with. She's doing a fantastic job, Johnathon, who says that people crossing our borders are not breaking the law per se. There's a problem in Washington with the way they think and what they believe. This is where we have to attack the problem also. It's not just enforcing law, it's getting the people out in Congress who are in these cabinet positions who are non-performers. If I perform my job the way she performs hers, I would have been fired months ago. So I don't support amnesty. I don't see how that's justice. Mercy cannot rob justice. That's the way I look at it. And if you violated our law, you must be punished for it. And I don't support any sort of amnesty.
Thank you very much. We'll go next to Jesse Kelly. And Joe, your turn.
Yes. Mr. Kelly, how should employers be prosecuted who encourage illegal immigrants to stay because it's good for business?
Well, quite simply, I don't think anything's out of the realm of possibility for employers who hire illegal immigrants. That means jail time, fines, loss of permit to even conduct themselves in business. Let's be honest, I'm a big fan of a double-layer border fence down south to protect us. It worked in San Diego. Violent crime dropped by 54% in the city. But I've been endorsed by Sheriff Joe Arpaio because I understand that employer sanctions are the root of the problem. If there is no work, then they don't come. During strict enforcement of the I-9s in the mid-1980s, there were literally flocks of people going south. So employer sanctions are the most important thing in order to solve the problem, and they have to be as tough as necessary. And more importantly, we need to elect the right people to enforce those laws. The problem is, that's what we don't have, are elected officials to enforce them. Sheriff Joe Arpaio, he arrests and deports 25% of the entire nation's arrests and deportations. That means we have a lack of politicians willing to do what's necessary to keep this country safe.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller? Yes. Mr. Miller, the virtual wall along our southern border that cost the taxpayers $20 million and was strongly advocated by Gabrielle Giffords apparently doesn't work. In your opinion, is there a future for this technology, and can we ever recoup the cost?
Thank you for the question. Yes, there's a future for it. It is our right and responsibility as Americans to determine who comes into our country. We cannot advocate this. First off, no amnesties. Second, no welfare. Third, no anchor baby migration. Walls and barriers where appropriate, airborne assets, and ground-based sensors. Number 6, proper resources to Border Patrol and local law enforcement, visa enforcement. A lot of the people who are here illegally have simply overstayed their visa. We need to crack down. We need to create a market-based legal immigration system that'll help us, that'll help American economies and help us Americans. And that should include number 9, an enforceable and employer-based temporary worker program. This is a serious problem, folks. It's not going to simply evaporate in the desert air unless we acknowledge it and attack it as a whole. My opponents like to talk about the wall. I'm not opposed to a wall. I'm opposed to cheap political rhetoric that does nothing to secure the lives, liberty, and property of Americans. Walls work great in places like San Diego, urban environments, because of a term the Border Patrol uses called the melting point. The data shows that the wall delays people for about 2 to 3 minutes. In an urban environment where the melting point, that is where the illegal immigrant melts into the population and you're never going to find them again, it's 5 seconds whenever they can turn around the corner of a building or blend into the crowd. In the middle of the Arizona desert, it's measured in days, and a 2 to 3 minute delay is meaningless. We have 351 miles of border in the Arizona desert, and to equate that with the 14 miles of fence in San Diego does not compute. We see this with the result of all the tunnels we see. To protect Americans' lives, liberty, and property, we must give law enforcement the tools they need and a manageable problem so they can protect us from the terrorists, violent criminals, and the gang members. We've got to solve this problem, folks. It's threatening our lives and our country.